Okay, good evening and welcome to another Mid-Ulster Amateur Radio Club Tuesday night lecture series. I'm Dave, 2I0SJV, and along with the rest of the team, you're very welcome if you're watching us here on Zoom or you're watching us on the YouTube channel. Feel free to like the channel, subscribe, and it can be found at youtube.com/MUARC Media, where you'll find a whole list of all our previous lectures that has been carried on. So let's start it off as a lockdown experiment where we met every Tuesday night and had a talk by different speakers on numerous different topics. So there's plenty there to watch, some great interviews and other topic manners like filters and everything else. So please do enjoy the other lectures. This evening we're gathered with Cathy there from Raynet UK, and she's going to be talking to us a wee bit about Raynet and the history and what it does and everything else, and I'm sure we'll be touching as well on the future. So Cathy, you're very welcome. If you want to unmute there, I'll hand the floor over to yourself without any further ado. But what I will say, if anyone has any questions, if you can kind of leave them till the end, or feel free to put them in the chat, or if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment, and I'm sure we can get an answer back to you as well. So, Cathy, over to yourself.
Thank you. Can I share my screen?
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead.
You got it?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm Cathy G1GQJ. I'm President Chairman of Raynet UK. Been a Raynet member for over 40 years. In fact, coming up 45. So this is where Raynet came from, where we are now, and what about the future. And then I'm going to hand over to my partner, Guy M0GUY, to talk about DMR. So what is an emergency? I'll give you a little while to read through that. It's not easy to define. It can happen without warning, often does. Nowadays, there are alert processes in place to warn of flooding, tsunamis, storms, etc. But this is the case. Whatever happens, the second definition makes clear of such emergencies or disasters. It would be more first world problems, if not being able to make payments in power outages, so not being able to obtain food or fuel in our current just-in-time economy. Disasters could happen anywhere. Despite popular belief, they still do happen. The European Community Humanitarian Office compiles disaster risks for countries around the world. Their definition of risk is a balance of a disaster happening, balanced by the economic ability of the country to recover from that damage. But by that measure, hurricanes do not affect the USA nor wildfires Australia, and nothing ever happens in the UK. It's just a matter of perception. So where Raynet from? 1953, and where it all began for Raynet. So what happened? 900 of coastline affected. It displaced 30,000 people, 5 lives. It damaged many coastal radio stations, unanswered, and local amateurs responded to the need for communication. But the role of amateur radio goes back much further than that. World War II, radio amateurs worked 5 as voluntary interceptors, submitted 23,000 logs a month. 1950, the RSGB offered the government to set up an emergency communication service. Said no, there was adequate. And then 1953, the flood. The RSGB again in March 1953 asked for registration in emergency service. And in November 1953, the Radio Amateurs Emergency Network was announced having been formed at the Amateur Radio exhibition of that year. So, 1953, London telephone depends on mains and batteries. Radio depends on mains or batteries, and occasionally telephone. Neither system is used, nor was it. Nowadays, mobile phones depend on batteries and IT networks. Two-way radio depends on mains, electricity, batteries, IT networks, social media, batteries, IT network, data centers. So notice how many of these networks depend on just a few systems. So where are we now? Well, radio amateurs are a trained pool of volunteer operators, technicians, engineers who use their skills to augment communication facilities. They can cope with limited resources because their equipment is self-owned. They provide a flexible, decentralized, resilient network. They lend their time and resources in providing communications to the communities when all other means fail. They provide a basic network to bring up the services now seen as essential by the population. And they allow interoperability between users of radio systems, such as linking volunteer agencies to professional services. So who can activate Raynet? Category 1 and 2 responders under the Supervision Act 2024. Then you've got the voluntary agencies, British Red Cross, St John Ambulance, First Aid, Royal Voluntary Service, Salvation Army. Any government department. Ofcom is not a government department. The department that I'm in government is the Department of Levelling Up Housing and any public body, either directly or indirectly. So what are the current threats? I'll give you three. Climate change probably poses the biggest threat in the fall and it, I think we've all seen enough of the rain. Provides a system called Hazard Manager, which subscribe. Major incidents will there, but they often cause telecommunication overload, total communication failure. The big issue at the moment with local resilience forums is that they're going to lose communications, they won't be able to use airwave, what they're going to do. We need, and with the current view of the license, they're not happy bunnies at the moment. The national threat of power outages reappeared over the horizon. Involved in both government exercise with this threat. and exercise mighty oak. But this is a threat that occurs frequently. 2002, 2009, and definitely not limited to winter. And then there are the unvoked emergency situations when the happens. Raynet were on standby for the evacuation of residents to rest centres in the War II that was discovered in Norfolk. They attended daily briefings, and they were also on standby for the Jersey gas explosion. Raynet was also there at Durham when a vintage plane crashed, dealing with the aftermath of thousands of citizens who witnessed events, assisted police, the blue light services, and the voluntary agencies who were on site. So what do we get up to? 2023, we have over 100 events. Most of these were events, safety communications, and we also have equipment installation and testing. Other activities include training, meeting with event organisers, planning and coordinating events, practical advice to our user services, particularly the agencies who are not particularly techy and wonder why the aerial work on this. Well, have you tried plugging it in at the top of the mast? And talks to interested organisers about the rain. So what about the future? The advantages of Raynet and Burgundy, we are infrastructure independent. Very important. We don't rely on anything. We have an operational support team. That was a combination of the emergent planning and the technical teams, because so much of it opened. And we also interoperability in our user services. It's all very interesting. We've got Airwave, but not all agencies are able to audit. They have their own radio systems, so we often have that as the bridge between the two of them. We also promote amateur radio. Practical use. We do a lot of experimentation. We have something called FeedNet, which is a system that they run across the Forth estuary between Lothian, across to Fife. In case of flooding, that was funded by the local authorities. And we also have Raynet's DMR server, which Guy will go on to talk about. So, since 19 technologies on the same systems, emergence is one of the public-facing and regulator-facing aspects of the hobby, even if Ofcom don't always understand it, but they've gone through a bit of education process. Raynet's come a long way in the last 70 years. We don't know where the next emergency will come from or when. Top left is a bit of the FeedNet. The snow was on the a couple of years ago. So, those who can do, those that can do more volume, that's bottom line. We're all short volunteers, just St. John, Red Cross, anybody who need volunteers desperate. Are there any questions? No. Okay. I know Guy's on board.
I have a question, Cathy.
Go on then, Philip.
Right, so you're preaching to a lot of the converted tables. There's quite a few on the call who are Raynet members, but your audio was a wee bit broken, but that doesn't matter. We're fit to follow the slides. Just there was one or two slides there about what we do and how we do things, and linking in with the user services and whatnot. Now, during the Ofcom consultation, there was a bit of controversy about user services and the way they described that, but that has been corrected in the latest information, hasn't it?
That's good to hear, because I know there was quite a lot of comment about it.
Are you aware of any? Have they changed their description or what?
The teams. Just repeat that, Philip.
Sorry, I was saying, are you aware of how or what way Ofcom have changed their description of working with user services and whatnot?
I haven't seen that from Greg.
Right, well, they have. But
Good.
hopefully tomorrow, the Ofcom will be producing their documentation, or Thursday at the latest. I think they have to do it by, but I believe that, yeah, there was a lot of controversy about that, and I do believe they have, corrected that and improved their explanation of who we can work with and who can activate us and whatnot. So it's just, I thought, I just noticed the information on your slides, the same as the previous presentation you done. So, but just there will be a document released, or the consultation final document will be released either tomorrow or Thursday by the latest. I would encourage everybody to read it carefully. As soon as that document is public, that's your license changes come into effect. And I do believe, Cathy, and this might not be public knowledge yet, the 70 cents, 23 cents issue with the, well, especially 70 cents,
Yeah.
having to get clearance from the primary user is no longer an issue.
Oh, right.
Below 25 watts.
I mean, it going on the Ofcom thing, I think you'll agree that the education process with the people at Ofcom in the don't have to anymore, and we have people like Vex, Rob Kinston, who knew about amateur radio, and we lost that when we moved. And it's been said almost like in that they are not communications. They are very much guided by it. And one of the things that didn't quite down to the user tools, or these units that are now calling things. So talk through is literally a portable pit, and we put up, do all sorts of plan whatever, and one things that Ofcom put together is that crossband isn't just way elements and the reverse way back, and they couldn't quite that now. But I did understand the importance of flexible, stable in an emergency to put one of these units to work. don't understand the concept of terrain. So there's a bit of education with Do Luck, which is the Department of it's the community aspect that LRFs are really concerned about.
Sorry, Cathy, your audio was very, very badly broken. I don't know what mic you're using or what, if it's your bandwidth, but that was
Yeah,
hard.
it's a bandwidth issue. It keeps coming up.
That was hardly readable at all. I wouldn't even give you a radio 1 on that. Sorry. But all will come out in the next few days anyway. So, but
So.
I just know a few of these things because I sit in the Spectrum forum too. But obviously, don't try and interpret the information that comes out. If you're not sure, don't be afraid to ask the question. Is what I would say, either from Raynet or from RSTB. No point asking Ofcom because they'll just confuse that shit as they have done in the past. Right, sorry, Cathy, back to you. Are we handing over to Guy?
Thanks, Philip. Any other questions? Okay, over to Guy then.
Oh, hard act to follow. Good evening, everybody. Let me just share my screen. Hopefully, there we go. Get that going and do that. And with fair weathering, that might be working. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the DMR server that we set up in Raynet. And of course, the first question that everybody asks is, what, another DMR server? Why have we got another one? What's the value? Well, as you can see, there are plenty of DMR servers out there, Brandmeister being a very well-known one, DV Scotland, which used to be called Phoenix, New Kid on the Block, Free DMR, and a lot of other derived ones from the HP Link Python source code. So why did we develop another one? Well, we, as Cathy said earlier, we need to be a little bit independent of these third-party systems. If we are reliant on Brandmeister, what happens if they decide to change how they operate? What happens if they suddenly say, no, you can't work on this anymore during an emergency? That's going to be a problem for us. The other problem is, of course, these are all public, and it's possible that we could get booted. Somebody else could be keying up. Somebody else could be doing all sorts of other things that knock us off the ability to have those communications. So building a dedicated system solves all of those problems. We have control of it. We can be isolated away, so we're not in a position where other members of the radio fraternity might be causing interference or anything else. We're nicely segregated away. So we built a DMR server from the ground up. We originally played with HP Link, but realized it wasn't going to scale in the way we wanted it to work. So we built from the ground up a whole DMR service, which is currently running in the Amazon AWS cloud with a bit of redundancy and reliability there. It used to run out of my garage, but we migrated it not so long ago. And with that, we get a dedicated service. Each zone or group, we've allocated 100 talk groups to use. So for every single group, every single zone has 100 talk groups that are allocated just for them to play with. You can name them, you can make turn on security on those, whatever you want to do, they're there for that group to play with. So that immediately expands the capabilities you might have. You might set up a talk group for engineering. You might set up a talk group for this specific event. You might have a talk group for transport, a talk group for emergency, a talk group, whatever you want. However you want to define it is purely up to you. That's the whole beauty of this. So at the moment we have around 21,000 talk groups defined, But of course, we're unlimited. We can add as many talk groups as we want. That's just the starting bracket. And more than that, we delegate out the administration. So each zone is able to administer their own collection of talk groups. So they can enable them, disable them, rename them, and as I said earlier, set access controls. Access controls allows us to define who is allowed to receive and who is allowed to transmit on that talk group. So some of our talk groups, or some of the groups, have chosen to secure their common talk groups that they use, and so they're just restricting who's allowed to PTT on that group, and obviously who's allowed to receive traffic. Obviously, the traffic is not encrypted. It could be. We do support encryption on the Raynet server, but by default, it's obviously not. So anybody in the earshot of a repeater that's locked onto that talk group would hear the traffic, but somebody, even if they're in the zone of that repeater, tries to press the PTT on their radio, their traffic would not be accepted by the server or heard. We can log, and we do log all the traffic going through, so you can see who called in, what time. If they're a member of the Raynet server, then we'll have their details and where they called in from. So did they come in, as you can see here, through Brandmeister? So yes, we are cross-linked to Brandmeister and to DV Scotland. So anybody calling in on 23531 on those services will appear in the Raynet server on a specific talk group in the Raynet server. So that gives us a nice extended reach. And then all the internal talk groups for all the different groups, they're all individually managed and controlled. They may be linked to public repeaters that are owned by Raynet repeater keepers. They can set those up and associate to those, but otherwise they're kept inside the Raynet service. We can also cope with GPS. So your DMR radio can squawk out an APRS GPS signal, and that can again also be picked up by the Raynet server. And again, we have access controls on that. So as a control, you can specify who is capable of receiving or looking at your location. And at any time, you can list who is seeing your location and revoke that permission if you wish to do so. You can also request to see somebody else's location, but until that person approves that request, you can't see their location. And again, we'll plot those locations on the map. And then at the bottom there, you can see the greater details of the time and the actual GPS longitude latitude recorded. If you are not within the reach of your radio, but you have got your mobile phone, then you can actually do a GPS location ping using your mobile phone and the web browser. So you just go onto the website and then just click the button here, and it will send your location through the mobile phone network, again giving you that capability of saying, yep, I'm on station, or whatever that might be. And then one thing, or the last thing, is one more recently that we've added into the DMR service is the ability to support paging. So some of you from the 80s will remember these pagers, and everybody loved the pager. Yeah, thank you for, I've got mine here as well. These pages run on a nice, simple protocol, very easy to work with, and I included the code to support these pages into the Raynet service. And so again, we can send pages through the UI on the website here. But I've also written APIs, and so we're able to actually integrate this paging service into all sorts of other things. I, for example, have a page that goes off when I've got cheap electricity outside of my normal hours, or when the power cuts occur on the grid and my batteries take over. then I'll get a page on that as well, and a few other things that happen around the house. So absolutely easy to integrate with those facilities and get those pages notifications going through. So again, we built a paging service to do that. If you want to play with paging, then I have written some code that fits nicely into a Pi-Star hotspot. So if you have a Pi-Star hotspot, you can run that very simple command at the top, curl space minus capital L, blah, and that will install a shim that goes into the Pi-Star to support the Raynet paging. But the shim that sits in there will also continue to support the DAPSEC paging. So if you want to do both from the more common DAPSEC, then you can do that. If you want to just do the Raynet paging, then, well, you'll still need this shim to support that. Why do you need this shim? Well, one thing is that Pi-Star only supports Telnet for paging. And two, I wanted to be able to support multiple paging services, such as DAPNet and ours. And so I had to build a proxy in there. Now, our paging on the DMR server, actually, well, I didn't like the idea of Telnet or TCP because that requires a continuous connection to the service. That actually increases the load everywhere. And so instead, I changed to write a UDP protocol, which is exactly the same as the protocol that you get for your DMR voice going across the network. So the Pi-Star talking to Brandmeister or to us, the Raynet server, is all UDP, stateless, nice and easy. And so there's a protocol here that I've just developed, very simple protocol to handle that paging request. And all we do is the Pi-Star runs this ping. So every 20 seconds, 30 seconds or so, it makes a UDP connection to me and says, are we good? And then if that comes back and says log knock, then we haven't got authentication. So try and request an authentication. And once we've gone through the authentication, then we'll just have a simple ping pong going back and forth until a message is requested and then the message is sent. So very simple, opens up the firewalls, the network routing and so forth. So no additional effort on proxying and things like that. Someone's sending messages. Thank you, Philip. If you want to integrate with paging, then the API is the way to do that. And again, as I say, it's a very simple API string. All we're doing is making a post request to that URL, API v1 page. You need to paste in your API key, which the Raynet server will happily tell you what that is. It creates one for you, or can do, click on the button. And then what you can specify is the RICs, which are the codes for each pager. The RICs look remarkably like your DMR IDs, because that's what they are. So everybody has a RIC already. And as you can see there, we can have multiple RICs in the messaging. So we can send to multiple people simultaneously, or we can send to a global RIC. Groups is the Raynet group you wish to send this message to. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, that is an association to the people who are going to get it. So as a Raynet user, you are assigned a group, whether that be zone 11 for Philip or zone 3? I can't remember. Anyway, a group, and your hotspots that you're connected to are also associated that group. So when you specify the groups in here, what we're actually specifying is a subset of hotspots to send this message to. So we do not send it to every hotspot on the DMR service. We instead just send it to those that are most likely to actually want that information. So rather than just blanketing it out to everyone, which is what DAPNet does, we filter down just to a specific subset. Of course, we can again have multiple. So if you want to send it to multiple groups, absolutely, Philly Beats, we can do that as well. So if you do, and there is actually a special group 0, which is send it to every hotspot that's on the registration, send it to everybody. But generally speaking, if you're doing your own paging to say, you know, I've got a power cut, nobody in Scotland cares that I've got a power cut, so I don't need to page them. I'll just send it to the small group that's relevant to that. If you don't know somebody's RICs, then you can also do it by call signs. And again, we'll just look up the call sign, look up the RIC, and do the reverse stuff and send that message out. So very, very simple protocol to do the APIs. So if you want to integrate, it's very easy to support that function. If you want to play with the DMR server, if you haven't already done so, then let me know and I can create you an account on there. It is by invitation, so you can't just go to the server and go create account. There is a button to request an account, and that will generate or ask you to generate an email, which gets approved by a human to validate, and then you'll get an account on the system. Your zonal coordinators are able to register accounts as well, so they can go on the server and just tap in email addresses and it will get registered. If you use your Raynet or raynet-uk.net email address, then that is more automated and it will automatically be approved. If you use a third-party email address, Gmail, Hotmail, AOL, if any of that still works, then that is a manual approval to verify that they are Raynet members, but that's a fairly straightforward task to go through. If you want more information about how the Raynet server works, for novelty value, I did write some help pages, and they are at help.m0guy.com, and lots of information there, even basics of how to set up and how DMR works, as well as how the Raynet server itself works. So if you are just testing the water with DMR, I can certainly recommend reading those pages, and it will give you a good overview of how DMR actually can work and how we can interlink with wires F and the other modes in the network system. And that's it. Any questions from anybody?
Hi, Guy. It's Dave 2i0sjv.
Hey.
So obviously, as technology has moved on and everything else, do you think Raynet will stick with DMR, Guy, or do you think there's another technology out there that we haven't maybe discovered or harnessed that would suit better, or do you think we're pretty good where we are with Raynet and DMR?
So we've got quite a good take-up of the DMR service at the moment. In membership-wise, we have, and the survey says, just let it count up the numbers. I think about 320, 330 users, which is not a bad number to be going with. Is this the fun? No, it's definitely not. It's a point in time. I picked DMR as to play with because I saw that as a most popular mode. D-Star I discounted fairly early on because of the expense of actually getting started with it. Then there was DMR or Wires F. Wires F has quite a lot of interesting things about it that make it very difficult to work with in the same way that we use in DMR. In DMR, I can just create talk groups and move on. With Wires F, I have to define a port on a network device and then have something listening on the end of that device to reflect or repeat that traffic back again. And so that becomes quite tricky when you're talking about 21,000 talk groups to instigate. Doesn't lend itself well to one single server running all of those talk groups, for example. There's also very little, or in fact no, authentication or security on wires F. We're again making that somewhat limiting in what we're trying to achieve here. There are protocols coming along. M17. I've been talking to lots of people, reading lots of things about M17 as a protocol, and tinkering with that. I haven't actually got a radio that supports M17 at the moment, but that sounds like something that that could be something to go with and explore. The main thing to think about is picking whatever we pick is one that everybody's going to be able to use and pick up and play with. M17 at the moment is very much a niche corner of the hobby market, because you have to go and get a radio that supports it. Then you have to go and flash the firmware onto this radio and hope you don't brick the radio in the process. And then you have to fiddle with the Pi-Star to set up M17, which has only recently rolled that support in there. So it's a little bit behind the curve. It's something to watch for and seeing if it does develop. But what I want to have is something that somebody can relatively easily pick up and go, this is going to work, because we're talking emergencies here. We're talking about stuff that we need this to work. We need this to have been tried and tested, dropped in a puddle and still function. And we have that with the DMR service.
Like literally switch your radio on and start transmitting, because it obviously the value of instant messages and everything else. So yeah, very good.
Yeah, and anything relating to the internet, you know, using Zello or anything like that, you're limited by, again, third-party services and products to function like that. So it's a cool product. I mean, I've got a little Zello radio here, and it's quite good fun. But again, you worry about it. There's so many dead spots with GSM networking, third-party services, all those sorts of things start coming into play. So, you know, best to control the whole infrastructure, and then we know where we are.
Thanks.
Right. So DMR relies on the internet. is something a lot of people are going to say. So
Yes.
why are Raynet adopting this? Because you're relying on, you're relying on infrastructure.
So you're right. We are relying on, at the moment, AWS, Amazon Cloud. However, the way I built the Raynet server, we could actually run this on a Raspberry Pi. And in fact, we have done so. So if the world fell away, you've got a couple of choices. One is we could use something like Starlink as an uplink, and then you're independent of BT Internet, Sky, or anybody else. We just straight to satellite and off we go. But we could also set up the Raynet server on a Pi in the middle of a field and link in over mesh networking or all sorts of other functionality to bring those connections back in again. The actual underlying protocol that we use is so tiny, it's 9600 baud, because that's what the radios work at. So we can actually run that over almost any radio connection. And you know what amateurs are good at? Is setting up radio connections. And so we can easily re-establish. So one thing I'm working on is exactly that. Have a DMR in a box, DMR server in a box, 4 zones to have. It hauls it back to the primary server, but it's perfectly capable of running solo. So you could just set it up in your region, switch it on, and then just mesh networking out to all the people.
That was going to be my next thing to say. We're working on a mesh network here.
Yeah.
And I have said to a few people that we could link our talk-through repeaters and our hotspots to that mesh network, but obviously we would need a link back to the primary server. But if we had portable servers, we could have our own regional closed network, not relying on any outside infrastructure at all, and have our own, as you say, Raspberry Pi mini server within the region. Right? I want that by the weekend. No, but that I've been working towards that slowly. As you know, I'm very keen on DMR, and I've went with the page and whatnot. Now, one thing, you might hate me for this, and you know, I've had this issue a few times when the Raspberry Pi updates.
Yeah.
I lose the protocol for paging. You said
Yes.
you were looking at writing something that updated that. Have you ever done that, or?
Yeah, I've got that in testing here at the moment. I just haven't pushed it out yet. The problem is that when you do a Pi-Star update, it re-inflicts the firewall. The Pi-Star has its own firewall inside for no very good reason at all. And every time they do an update, they wipe out the changes that I make and push their own back on again. And so you just have to redo that. One of the simple tricks is just to do the reinstall command again, and it will reset all of that.
Which I have been doing. I haven't had this Pi-Star on for a while, but I would say if I connected the power now and looked at it, I probably would have to do the reinstall of the.
Yeah, so one of the things I've been playing with a couple of different solutions. One of the solutions is just simply to watch the IP tables and then just keep resetting them as necessary, and I can do that at a fairly regular system. I was just trying to see if there's a smarter way of doing it. But
just had a WhatsApp now. It says there, how do you get a pager? You do what the rest of us done, Dave. You buy it, but it's no good to you unless you have a Pi-Star, a working Pi-Star, because it has to work through the Pi-Star.
Yeah, so there is. You can get them on AliExpress, and I did see them on Amazon a while back, and places like that. They vary in price. It's the Alpha Pog 602R. There's my camera. There it is.
Yeah.
Pager. Oh, this is where my backdrop kills it. There we go. Pager, and these ones are reasonably programmable if you have the cable to go with. And the thing you might need to program is the frequency, and that can actually no. I think you can do the frequency through the keypad.
You can do everything from the frequency. The only thing you can't do is change the language. So I bought mine direct from the manufacturer in Germany, as you're aware.
Yeah.
And you can't change the language. I then had to go and buy the cable, which I passed on to Raynet. Guy has it, or Greg has it. One of the two.
I have the cable. Thank you very much.
Just to change the language. So if you are going to buy direct from the manufacturer in Germany, make sure you specify you want it in English. They'll do that for you before they dispatch it. I didn't realize that when I bought mine, but
yeah.
But no, they're very, very good.
And to be honest, I have Philips cable. Thank you very much for that. If any of you do have one that needs relanguaging or any other of those settings, I'm very happy to do that for you. Obviously, you have to post it to me, and I'll post it straight back. But I'm happy to do that if that's easier, because the cable itself is actually quite expensive.
And just to say that you can actually do messaging through the web browser anyway without a pager, but it's handy if you have the pager in your Pi-Star if you're out in the field.
Yes, I did include the UI to keep a record of the pages that you've received and sent, and also allow you to send additional pages back out again. So yes, you can actually have a whole conversation through the web page if you wish. But yeah, getting it buzzing on your shoulder is the intent here.
Is there any scope for like a push to Telegram? You know, like a push notifications out to Telegram or anything like that?
There's no reason not that can't be done. We could certainly do that. We could do it in a couple of different ways. The way we'd have to think about it is you, as in your personal settings, would have to associate your Telegram identity to your account, and then yeah, I can send a post to Telegram. That's just another API call. So yeah, that's easy to do.
Thank you.
So if you'd like that, yeah, I can look into doing that.
How would the Telegram work if you had no infrastructure?
Oh, you
Whereas-
spotted the floor.
I'm thinking of totally no infrastructure here at all, but having your own mesh network and whatnot, with your Pi stars and maybe talk through your feeder link update and your own regional DMR server.
That's probably where you could come back to the likes of Mattermost and stuff like that we have installed on the internal mesh.
Yeah. Well, you would have other ways of doing that, but let's think about the main thing is that we can operate without relying on any infrastructure whatsoever, apart from our own infrastructure if we create it, of course.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
we might never have to do that, but we should
Philip,
be
you're
able to.
me not buying a pager already. Calm down.
No, I think you're right. I think we need to be able to operate without infrastructure, but we should also embrace infrastructure where it's there. And if that helps us in an advantage, then let's do that. But the main structure is capable of working completely off grid. And that's the key thing.
Chances of the whole UK being out
Yeah.
at one time is slim. So, and as you say, the server's now on the Amazon cloud. So, if and when we ever had to do anything over here in Zone 11, I would be linking my Starlink that we have to the mesh network, so we would have access to the internet anyway. So, but I do like the idea of a regional server or money server, if you like, Guy. And it's coming near the end of the year, so you're bound to have some leave to take. So, yeah, I would like that by the weekend.
So-
can I ask? Sorry, just to maybe go in a wee different direction, if that's all right. Obviously, Guy and Cathy, Raynet has been around for a while, obviously a while. With technology improving, natural disasters and governments being more prepared. Or do the governments still see, like in the UK, value of Raynet? Are they still considered, or is it a lot of sort of more sporting events now? I know we always say prepared for an emergency, but is some local councils or local areas saying we can do this ourselves?
No, they're not actually. They're saying quite the opposite. We can't do it anymore. They've
Excellent.
lost so.
I think what's happened is a few have tried and failed, fallen on their face dismally, because they've gone, well, we've all got mobile phones. And then as soon as there's a power cut and the masts all shut down, they suddenly go, the phones don't work.
Exactly. And what I said at the start of this call, a lot of councils, even the own council I work for, and I work in IT, trying to get through to other people in IT. Yeah, we have a generator, that's all right. We'll get the building up and running. But if the power's out in this area, or fiber goes to that green box, which goes to that green box, then green boxes need power and they have no power backup, so you have no internet.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's all fiber these days. So
yeah.
The real problem is, and this has happened already, is we had over here a power cut, which is very rare, but we had a power cut lasted an hour and a half. By which point, all of the cell towers in the area shut down because their batteries only last 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And we've all been fibered up. So we've got fiber to the premise. So yeah, wonderful. I've got a gigabit internet, which is why this is working well. But as soon as the power cut, boom, all of that goes away. And then all of the people who are most in need of communication, those older people who've had fall or worries, they can't use their phone because there's no power to their house and to that phone line. The old 2-pair copper wires, that gave you 40 volts. That would run your phone. You can't do that anymore. And so
you're going to make Jimmy cry. You're going to make Jimmy cry. He was crying about that at the start. That is something that went out and never power went out for 40 minutes. These young people, Guy, don't know how to live without power or internet.
No, well, I'm lucky. I've got 2 Tesla Powerwalls in the garage, so my power's good.
Really interesting, just going back to you, Dave, that only 4% of so backup at all. They were told them, you've got to have battery backup.
Sorry, Cathy, you broke up there a lot.
I've got an unstable.
Cathy lives in a part of the country that mustn't have fibre yet.
Carrier pigeon.
Yeah, I think generally, as you're saying there, Cathy, and that obviously there's quite a big percentage don't have a backup, you know, and that includes event organizers and local councils and governments. So,
Yeah.
which is always a good reason to be prepared, even in our everyday life as amateurs. Whenever you know the power goes off to the plug, we should be having a secondary source to power radios to keep a communication link. Never mind being prepared for emergencies. Always good to think about these things, you know.
In advance.
Absolutely, not after they've happened. Absolutely. Does anyone else have any questions there who's on the call, or any comments or anything about their time, life, or whatever in Raynet?
Does everybody already have an account on the DMR server? And if not, why not?
Yeah, contact us. We'll get it sorted.
That's
One
it.
thing I would like Cathy just to say, and I come through one of our WhatsApp groups the other day by a long-term member, was I hope they acknowledge the fact that we're going since 1966 or 65, was it, Dave, or something, Gordon said? Here in Zone 11. But just say aye, Cathy.
Yeah, something like 66, I think.
Yeah,
Sometime mid-60s anyway.
yeah.
Yeah, 1966. It was set up in Northern Ireland, and the operator did happen to mention it was before his time, but it was set up in 1966 here.
Before I was born,
Just
time. So yeah, battery power is good if you have your battery's charged, and I have two all power banks that I keep charged all the time too. So I like to think I'm prepared, but you never know what can arise at any time.
That's it. I
absolutely.
try and keep I've got a couple of deep cycle marine batteries as well, which I keep charged up.
Yeah. You've really got me excited now, Guy, about the regional DMR server.
Well, you know, the actual.
I have a spare Raspberry Pi or two.
I thought you might. The actual running of the server is not a problem. That's quite. I've done that. That's easy. The problem I've got is user accounts, because the main server here, or in AWS, obviously has all the user accounts. How do we synchronize in a secure and controlled way that user registration, that user detail to the local machines without overexposure of other user data and user account information?
Well,
and things like that.
regional ones, would you not just try and have the local accounts on that one rather than the whole lot?
That is my current process. Yes, is the zone would sync the zone counts down, and then we've also got the uplinking of voice traffic back if that link is there. But then it's, if you change the password on the local one, do I then update the password on the central one? And if I update the password on the central one, do I then push that change down to the local one? And how do we reconcile those deltas? Yeah. Those are the things that are going through the head that's actually slow this process down. The actual running up of a server, I do that on my laptop every day. So that's not a problem. But it's those interlinks that I need that takes an extra forethought. But yeah, we'll get there. We're getting there. We're getting there. But yes, you can test it when I get it working.
Good. I've made to get a few more people on the DMR server here. Myself, well, after the AGM guy and Ian Evans, GI0AZB, who's not on the call tonight because he had another, but the shack manager's on the call. He got signed up and we done a bit of testing. I thought, yeah, you know, so I don't know if I give you one of my talk groups for my group, whether you can talk to me. And we tested that and it worked very well. So, you know, and we done a bit of playing about and we were quite happy with it.
Good.
So it didn't do anything, or it did everything we expected it to do, and probably would do a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, it's not getting a full workout, shall we say, at the moment. Every Sunday at 4 local, it has a workout, but outside of that, it's not pushing an awful lot of traffic at the moment, and it's certainly got headroom to cope with a lot more traffic.
Yeah, well, we did play about it, and if we get a couple more signed up here and so on, we'll definitely do it. I try to connect every Sunday at 4 o'clock for the weekly net.
Yep.
It's quite good, and I've done it through a Brandmeister repeater.
Yep.
I've done it through a Phoenix repeater, and I've done it through my own hotspot. You know, just to test it out, and it works well. So
the other thing is we support on the server, we have bridges, and we support Open Bridge, so you can link in other services. So if I just briefly show you this might be a bit small for some, but you can see here, for example, Eastbourne and Wilden have a bridge to their services, and then we're just tunneling all of these talk groups over to their service as a bridge, and so they're supporting. Well, they get 22 talk groups, some of which are secure controlled to their region.
So I see you have a bridge to Aaron. Is there much in that?
We do. Yep, that's up. That's available.
Right.
Not sure what's running across that at the moment. But,
no, well, it will be interesting that because, as you know, we have a land border with EI, so that will be quite useful maybe for us in Zone 11 to do something there.
And then it's very easy. We can just add a talk group in, and away it goes. In fact, I can even do this. Add other zones in there. I'm not going to do that, of course, but we could. And it'll even do rewrites. So if you wanted to expose as a different talk group number, we can actually do that in here as well, and bridge that through different regions. And Hampshire, they've also done the same. I think Hampshire have got HP Link running inside their zone, and then they just bridge that over to me for their talk groups, and share that back out again. So again, and there's the Brandmeister one. You can see there the 2 talk groups that we're bridging into Brandmeister and exposing. So that's one of my old DMR IDs that I used to test with, and it just goes into our technical one as a backhaul testing, and then that's the 23531, which is the Brandmeister and Phoenix whatnot, and that just bridges straight to there.
Yeah, just a quick one, since I noticed you had a bridge to Arden there. Have you tested over Arden, and what were your findings?
It's not Arden.
That's
Jimmy,
not Arden, no.
That's Aaron. That's the emergency service in EI.
I don't know
Let me zoom in. Yeah, I have played with Arden meshing, the mesh networking, and this service will work perfectly fine over it. But at the moment, I'm just VPN tunneled and not meshed connected. It's something I want to try and do, but I haven't got too many other people around my area who are also playing on the Arden network, so it doesn't play well, which is a shame. But yeah, the service itself will work quite happily on that mesh network, no problems at all.
Cool, thank you.
As I say, the bandwidth for a voice call is 9600 baud. So it's absolutely microscopic compared to a 2.5 gigahertz Wi-Fi signal. So yeah, no problems at all getting it through that space. In fact, we can even we could use something like Oscar 100 if we really wanted to, and pipe it up to Oscar and back down again without too much problems. If we really wanted to expand the reach, might have to talk to the management of Oscar to get it approved. But in technical terms, we could absolutely do that.
Sure.
Okay, folks, any other calls or comments or questions or anything for Guy or Cathy before we do a wee wrap up?
It looks like I was trying to revisiting MDMV thing again. I tried to get going a while back, but fortunately due to work I had to leave it for a while. I was going to talk to Jamie about it, but I have two DMVs here and Pi zeros and two Pi 4s, but I have to get this going. But it sounds very interesting. Thanks very much for an interesting night, Guy. Very good. We'll have to go onto the Raynet server sometime. I'm trying to. I haven't given up yet.
Oh well, yeah, absolutely. And if you've got any problems getting connected, then just drop me an email, and I'll happily I can help. That's not a problem.
I was just building it, mate. It's up to Pi 4s here. Here's my Pi 4s here. Pi zeros here, and DMV, them DMVs here. But hopefully, I get time to sit down and work it out. But thanks very much for setting it up, and so back to you.
No problem at all. No problem at all. Thank you very much. It's good fun.
Okay, well, Cathy, Guy, thank you for joining us tonight on Zoom as we look at the topic around Raynet, where it's been, where it's going, and definitely is a vital resource for not only as us as amateurs, but event organizers, local councils, emergency planning groups, and everything else around the UK. We really do appreciate the time and effort that you both and the whole team at Raynet UK put in to making sure this vital organization continues and is well equipped by the sound of it for future proofness and technology as it emerges. And again, thank you very much for joining us this evening. We should be here on Zoom next month. Feel free to join us again there, and you'll be able to catch yourselves on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/MUARC Media, in a few days' time. So again, Guy, Cathy, thank you very much indeed. It's been really appreciative.
Oh no,
Thanks,
thank you
Dave.
very much for inviting us. Happy to talk all the time. All right,
And
take
he
care, guys.
can talk.
Well, it's my favourite topic, so. All right, guys, take care. Thank you very much.